Hello everyone, this is Dr. Malego, and today in this video I'm going to go over the first lesson for flute. We're going to start with the introduction. First of all, have the students set the case on something sturdy. I like to use a table, or you can have the students put them on a chair and then they can kneel in front of the chair. Show them how to open the case properly. In this case, the latches are going to lift up like this and the case will open. Most of the time, the handle is going to be on the bottom part of the case. After you get the case open and you have it down on a safe place, you're going to point out each of the parts of the instrument. For the sake of this video, I'm going to pick them up, but in real life, I would do this by pointing to them in the case. First of all, we have the head joint. We have the body. And we have the foot joint. For the first lessons in this class, you're going to be required to start on the head joint alone. What you're going to do is begin with the student taking the head joint out of the case, and you're going to have them do some activities to get used to the direction of air. So I like to have the students put their finger right here and blow the air down their finger. If you feel the air going all the way down your finger, that's the same kind of air you want to have when you play the flute. You can also have the student make their aperture, which is the opening inside their lips, and blow the air, and then tap with the other finger and you'll hear it stop. So listen. And you should stop the air the whole way. So then we're going to take the head joint. We're going to transfer this to the head joint. So the head joint is going to fit right in the crook of the chin so that the lower lip is going to roll over and cover about 1/3 to 2/3 of the embouchure hole. That is going to vary based on how thick or thin the person's lips are. My lips are pretty neutral, so I cover about 1/2 to 2/3. Then we're going to do the same thing, blowing the air down like we did with the finger. And that's going to give us a sound on the flute. We want to think about the voicing, the inside of the mouth while we're doing this. We're going to have space between our teeth, especially our back teeth, and we're going to have the tongue low. All parts of the tongue are going to be low the whole way back. And the tongue goes all the way down kind of into your throat. So all of the tongue is low while we're playing the flute. So the inside of the mouth is like an ah sound. And we're going to try our sound again. Be sure to have the student experiment making some different sounds before you move on. Next, we're going to have the student learn articulation. Before you put the flute together, but after you make the first sounds, teach the student how to articulate. You're going to want to define that word for the students. So explain to them that that's how we use the tongue to put a nice definition on the start of each note. On the flute, similar to brass instruments, you're going to tongue with the tip of the tongue hitting right behind your front teeth on the roof of your mouth. So it's about 1/8 to 1/4 inch behind the front teeth, and it's just the very front of the top of the tongue doing that. It should be very fast and not audible, so you don't actually hear a thud or anything like that. So you're going to go ahead and practice that. So on the flute, we're going to use the syllable to or do. As a side note, we don't use the E syllable on flute because that is going to raise the tongue and that is going to cause the voicing to not be accurate. So we're going to use to or do. You can say it a few times with the students. To, do. You can even blow your air and do it. So to, like that if you want. And then you can do it even without sound. Then transfer to the instrument. And have the student experiment. You could even do some echoing. So why don't you try echoing after me? And that's articulation. Next, we're going to move on to assembly of the instrument. So we already have the head joint out, and this is about being efficient. That's why we started with this. We didn't assemble the whole instrument, then take it apart, because that's just wasting time. So we're going to take the head joint. I like to take that in my left hand. Then we're going to take the body of the flute. We're going to put the head joint into the body of the flute with a very slight twisting motion. Notice that I'm holding the body of the flute by the tenon, so where the brand name is, and I'm holding the head joint away from the embouchure hole. I'm going to twist those parts together until the head joint is in line with the main line keys of the flute. I'm also going to have the head joint pulled out slightly. So it should be about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to I like to keep my left hand on the brand of the instrument, on the tenon, and we're going to take the right hand at the very end of the foot joint. So you'll see I'm holding the right hand after the keys are over. And we're going to assemble both of those parts together. Thumbs are facing in the same direction. We're going to use a gentle twisting motion. Once that's together, you'll see that the rod of the flute is going to come down and connect to the D sharp key right in the center of it. So we see comes down, and then there's the D sharp key in the center. Notice that this rod and this rod, these two rods do not line up on the flute. They're offset. Next, we're going to move on to holding in hand position. On the left hand, you're going to take your thumb, and that is going to be on this flat key in the back of the flute, not the round one, the flat one. Your index finger of your left hand is actually going to touch the flute. And you can see, this is my old flute from when I was a kid. You can see how it's actually tarnished where my finger touched for so many years. So we're going to put the knuckle there. And that's something students don't always remember to do. And that's an important thing to look for. Then for where we're going to put our fingers, we're going to skip the very first key. We're going to put a finger on here, skip this key. So we'll have a finger here, finger on the next key, and pinky on the G sharp key. Okay, so that's the home position for the left hand. Moving on to the right hand, we're going to take the right hand thumb, and that is going to go roughly behind the third key up on the body. And these three fingers are going to rest on, these are the last three keys of the body before we get to this D sharp key, which is where the pinky is going to rest. All of our fingers, we're putting the fingerprints on the keys, and our fingers should be curved, okay? So sometimes if fingers are double jointed, it's a little harder to do that, but you're going to curve your fingers onto the keys. The next thing we're going to do is rest the flute against the chin where we had it before. The head joint is going to be against the chin. So we have 3 points of balance. One is the head joint on the chin. One is this left hand knuckle. And the third one is this thumb on the right hand. So next we're going to talk about the first 3 notes to teach on the flute. Assuming you can teach your students the flute by themselves, so not in a group with all the other band instruments, I like to start on B, A, and G. So starting with B, we're going to have the thumb on that flat key, the first finger down, and the pinky down. And that's going to give us B. To get to A, we're going to add 1 finger. So remember, we're skipping this key and putting the next key down. And then we'll add 1 more finger to get to G. We can try that again. We want to make sure that we're articulating each note, and we want to make sure that we are playing and having the student echo. So that is the end of the first lesson on flute. Thanks for watching.